Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. I just asked her a simple question. Not accusatory. Not loaded. Just, are we still going to your sister's for dinner on Saturday? She was standing by the bedroom dresser, folding laundry half-heartedly with one hand while scrolling her phone with the other. There was this thing she did with her mouth when she was irritated, a little sideways twist of the lips, like a tick, and I saw it as soon as I spoke. She didn't even look at me when she said it. I run this marriage my way. 8 words. But they might as well have been a declaration of war. There was no context, no smirk, no hint of sarcasm. She said it flat, mechanical, like she'd been storing it for the perfect moment to let it slip. My first instinct was disbelief. Surely I misheard. My brain scrambled to fill in something else she might have said. But no, that was it. I run this marriage my way. I stood still for a second longer than I should have, just watching her, like I was trying to recognize the woman in front of me, the woman who used to cry when I flew home early to surprise her. The one who used to text me 10 times a day just to say she missed me. Now she couldn't be bothered to lift her eyes when she decided I was just a subject in her little kingdom. I set the TV remote down gently. A stupid gesture, but I remember it clearly because it was the only thing in the room I had control over in that moment. I didn't respond right away. I think part of me was hoping she'd realize what she said and walk it back. Maybe say she was stressed, maybe twist it into a joke, even a cheap apology. I would have accepted any of those. But she didn't. She just kept folding clothes and scrolling like she hadn't just thrown a grenade into our foundation. That was the thing about her lately. It wasn't the volume of her words, it was their precision. She didn't scream or throw things or have dramatic breakdowns. She sliced, quietly and efficiently. Like she was slowly carving away who I was, one small wound at a time. And I had been letting her. I didn't even realize how far we drifted from each other until that moment. Until that sentence. I run this marriage my way. She didn't say we. She didn't say together. It was her. Her rules. Her vision. Her structure. I was just a supporting character, someone to pick up groceries, pay bills, nod quietly during her rants about her coworkers, agree when she bashed my friends, tiptoe when she was moody, and show up in photos smiling so her social media marriage looked pristine. I looked at her again, this time slower. Not the surface version, the Instagram wife, the polished one with curated outfits and quotes about strong women don't need validation. No, I saw her for what she really was in that moment, someone drunk on control. Someone who mistook submission for love. Someone who had been winning a game I hadn't realized I was playing. And suddenly, I was wide awake. The fights we'd had over the past year, all those moments that had felt lopsided but I brushed off as stress, they came rushing back with clarity. The night she told her friends I had no drive. The time she made me cancel a weekend trip with my brother because she had a vibe about it. The countless times she'd micromanaged everything, how I dressed, how I emailed clients, how I spent my weekends. She used to say it was because she cared, that she wanted the best for us. But this wasn't caring. This was ownership. She thought she ran the show, and I had let her think it. I swallowed hard, blinked a few times, then left the room. No dramatic door slam, no biting comeback. Just walked out. Sat on the edge of the guest bed with my elbows on my knees and stared at the wall while my mind tried to rearrange itself. This wasn't about Saturday dinner plans. It was about how small I had let myself become to keep the peace. About how many compromises I had called maturity. About how many times I'd told myself that giving her control was worth it if it meant we didn't fight. But what do you do when the peace turns into submission? When your silence becomes her ammunition? That night, I lay beside her, eyes open, staring at the ceiling while she slept like nothing had shifted. She even reached out once and touched my arm, absent-mindedly, like touching a familiar piece of furniture in the dark. I didn't move, because something in me had moved permanently. That sentence, those 8 words, were going to sit in the center of my chest like a stone. And over the next days, weeks, however long it took, I was going to let it weigh everything she said, everything she did, everything I'd given up. She thought she was the queen. She didn't realize the board was about to lose its most important piece. I wasn't going to fight her. I wasn't going to argue for my place. I was going to walk. Off the board. Out of the game. Away from the illusion. And let her feel what happens when the man who gave her everything takes himself away. The funny thing about pulling away is how quiet it is. No dramatic exits. No screaming matches. No packed suitcases by the door. It starts in the smallest places. In decisions no longer shared. in responsibilities left untouched, in silences that used to be filled with effort, now left to echo. She didn't notice it at first. The first time, I didn't refill her car with gas like I usually did on Sunday mornings. She sent me a passive-aggressive text around noon. "Thanks for leaving me on E. Super helpful." I didn't reply. That alone probably stunned her more than the gas tank. Later that evening, when she mentioned her nail appointment clashed with our grocery run, something she usually tossed onto my list without a second thought, I just nodded. "All right," I said. "Let me know what you want to eat this week. I'll order takeout for myself." She stared at me for a second too long, like she was trying to figure out the joke. But I wasn't joking. That was the first real crack. The second came 2 days later when the bathroom faucet started leaking. I heard it, the slow, rhythmic drip like a metronome ticking off my apathy, but I didn't grab a wrench, didn't Google a fix, didn't offer to call the plumber. Instead, I dried my hands on the towel and walked out, leaving her alone with the noise. The old me would have been under the sink within minutes, but he was gone. Or rather, he was standing back, finally watching. And the more I watched, the clearer it all became. She had mistaken my love for weakness, my patience for passivity, my loyalty for dependency. But now, with each little withdrawal, I could see the shift in her eyes. She was still talking like a queen, but she was starting to look around and realize the castle was running itself without her commands being followed. She made her usual morning list on the whiteboard: errands, appointments, reminders. Normally, I'd photograph it before leaving for work, check things off one by one like a loyal foot soldier. But not this time. This time, I erased it. Just wiped the entire thing clean while she stood at the kitchen counter pretending not to watch me. She turned, slow and deliberate. "Did you just erase my list?" "No," I said calmly. "I erased your list." She blinked. The kind of blink people do when they're not sure they just got insulted. I poured my coffee, added exactly 1 sugar like always, and walked past her with a calmness I know unnerved her. Because I wasn't rattled. I wasn't provoking. I was just done pretending that her authority was earned. It wasn't. She ruled through habits I had helped her build, through sacrifices I had quietly made, through compliance disguised as compromise. But I was peeling those layers back, one morning at a time. That week, I stopped asking her what time she'd be home. I didn't offer to grab her dry cleaning. I didn't pretend to care when she fake laughed at TikToks in the middle of our supposed winding down time. And then came Friday night. She had made reservations at that overpriced tapas place downtown, the one with waiters who look down on you if you order anything basic. Normally, I'd dress up, play the part, ask her about her week, let her dominate the table conversation while I nodded at her thinly veiled complaints about her coworkers. But not this time. When she walked out in a sleek black dress, heels clicking, makeup flawless, she looked ready to win a prize. "What are you wearing?" she asked, noticing my plain tee and jeans. "I'm not going," I said. She paused like she misheard. "It's been on the calendar for 2 weeks," she snapped. "I didn't put it there," I replied. She stood in silence for a second, probably trying to compute how the man who used to bend over backward to please her could sound so indifferent. "Are you serious?" "Completely." She scoffed, grabbed her keys, and muttered something under her breath. It might have been childish or ungrateful or whatever buzzword she thought could guilt me back into position. But it didn't land. Because her crown was slipping, and she didn't even know it yet. When she returned later that night, the kitchen light was on, and I was already in bed. She hovered in the hallway for a few minutes, probably debating whether to confront me or pretend she wasn't affected. She chose the latter. But I heard the heavy way she exhaled before climbing into bed. The silence between us that night was different. It wasn't tense, it was cold. Not angry cold. Not petty cold. It was empty. I think that's when it first hit her. That the man who used to orbit her was no longer spinning. That the one who made the castle work was no longer checking the foundation. That maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the queen. She was just the last one to notice the board had been flipped. The unraveling didn't come all at once. No fireworks. No meltdown. Just little moments, frayed threads pulling loose one by one until the whole thing couldn't hold its shape anymore. It started with her credit card. She called me from the grocery store. Her voice clipped, like I was the one who had done something wrong. "My card isn't working." I knew it wouldn't. I had already pulled back my auto pay on it days ago, moved our shared account into a new one with just my name on it. Legally sound. Financially precise. I didn't explain that. I didn't even apologize. I just said, "Maybe it's time you run that part your way, too," and hung up. She came home seething, tossed her purse down like she wanted to make a statement, but I didn't flinch. I was halfway through folding my laundry, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed her an explanation for what I was doing or why. "Why are you acting like this?" she demanded, arms crossed, leaning on the kitchen counter like she was bracing for a storm she didn't understand. I didn't even look up. Like what? Like nothing matters. Like I don't matter. I let the silence stretch out before I said anything. I wanted her to hear the emptiness between her words. "You said you run this marriage your way," I said finally. "I'm just getting out of the way." She blinked, like hearing her own words used against her had caught her off guard. But she didn't back down. Not yet. Control was too much a part of her DNA to surrender without a fight. "I didn't mean it like that," she said. "You're twisting things." But that was the problem. I wasn't twisting anything. I was just reflecting, holding up the mirror she'd been too proud to look into. And she was starting to see what everyone else had quietly noticed over time. That mirror grew bigger the next week. She missed a work call, an important one. She was so used to me reminding her about meetings, prepping her laptop, printing her slides when the printer jammed. Without me doing the invisible tasks, she slipped. I came home and found her pacing, phone glued to her ear, snapping at her assistant like it was everyone else's fault. She didn't even acknowledge me. I just walked past her, grabbed a beer, and listened from the hallway as her voice cracked under pressure she used to toss onto my shoulders. Then it was her social circle. Dinner invitations started thinning out. Girls' brunches were suddenly postponed. One of her closest friends, Melissa, texted me directly one night. Just 2 words, "You okay?" I replied with, "Better than ever." Melissa responded with a thumbs up and didn't text again. But it said enough. They were starting to see her, too. It was always subtle, always polished. But her need to dominate bled into every interaction. Every story she told about us was how she fixed something, taught me something, tolerated something. I was her project, her charity case, her little success story. Now that I wasn't playing along, she had nothing to talk about. No wins to gloat over. No man at her heels to polish her image. And people noticed. Then came the moment that sealed it. We were at her cousin's engagement party. One of those overly lavish events with matching table napkins and custom drink menus. She was in her element, playing hostess even though it wasn't her party, laughing loudly, offering unsolicited tips on centerpieces, making small talk like she was interviewing for a crown. But when someone asked how things were between us, I said nothing. I just sipped my drink and watched her face tighten. She tried to laugh it off. "Oh, we're good. He lets me handle the hard stuff." I raised an eyebrow. "Hard stuff?" I said, calmly. "You mean like paying for your cousin's wedding planner when your card declined?" Her smile died in real time. A few people laughed awkwardly. Someone coughed. She stared at me, eyes narrowing, lips twitching like she couldn't decide if she was going to whisper or explode. "I was going to transfer the money." "Yeah," I said, already walking away. "Just like you were going to manage the marriage your way." I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I felt it in the room. Her control didn't just slip, it shattered. And not because I yelled. Not because I embarrassed her. But because I was no longer shielding her from the weight of her own ego. She didn't know how to carry it alone. That night, she didn't speak a word on the drive home. Not one. The silence was thicker than anger, heavier than grief. Because I think, for the first time, she was sitting in the reality she built. One where she held all the power. And suddenly had no one left to wield it over. She waited 3 days before saying anything. 3 days of pretending everything was fine, like if she ignored the shift long enough, it might reverse itself. She still made her smoothies in the morning. Still posted stories of her outfits. Still left half-finished to-do lists on the kitchen counter with that soft pink marker she loved. But the silence wasn't subtle anymore. It was surgical. And the thing about silence is it gets heavy when you realize it's not accidental. On the 4th night, I came home late. Not deliberately, not to prove a point. Just life. Traffic. Stopped for food. Took my time. And when I walked through the door, I could feel it. The way she looked up from the couch. The stillness in her posture. Like she'd been waiting there. Sitting. Stewing. Rehearsing. "You're late," she said. I dropped my keys in the bowl by the door. "Yeah, that's it," she snapped. "Yeah." I paused. Took off my coat. "What do you want me to say?" She stood up, her arms folded across her chest, but the usual fire in her stance wasn't there. Something was trembling under the surface. Something unfamiliar. "I want to know what the hell is going on with you," she said. "Why you're acting like you don't give a damn anymore." I gave her a long look. Not cruel. Not smug. Just honest. Because I don't, I said. The words landed like a slap, but I didn't raise my voice. Didn't move toward her. I just let them hang in the space between us like a rope she couldn't climb. Her lips parted. She blinked twice, like she hadn't rehearsed for that line. Like she'd expected me to argue, to beg for closeness, to fight. But I wasn't fighting. Not anymore. You don't mean that, she whispered. You're just mad. No, I said. I was mad. For years. You just never noticed. She crossed the room in 2 sharp steps, her voice rising. Don't play the victim now. You always said you were fine with how we did things. You never stood up for anything. Because you never left room for me to, I said, my tone still even. You treated compromise like charity. Like if you gave me 1 inch, you were doing me a favor. That's not fair, she shot back. Neither was calling the shots and pretending it was teamwork. Silence again. But this one was electric. She looked at me, breathing hard, her hands clenching and unclenching like she didn't know where to put them. Her mascara was perfect, her nails polished, her expression cracked. She was unraveling, and I wasn't going to hand her the thread. I was trying to keep us afloat, she said. If I didn't take charge, we wouldn't have made it this far. No, I said. We made it this far because I carried us. Quietly. Without applause. While you played queen and convinced yourself the throne was built by your own hands. She sat down. Hard. Like the weight of it finally hit. And then came the tears. Not the manipulative ones I'd seen before. Not the crocodile sobs used to end an argument. These were real. Raw. Silent at first, then choked as her pride broke down into something human. I didn't mean to make you feel small, she whispered. I sat across from her. Not beside. Not close. Just facing her, like 2 people finally seeing each other for the first time in years. You didn't make me feel small, I said. I made myself small to keep the peace. That's on me. Her eyes were glassy, rimmed in red. She reached for my hand. I didn't take it. Not out of cruelty, but because that moment wasn't about fixing. It was about truth. I thought you'd always be there, she said. I thought if I ran things well enough, it wouldn't matter how. And that's the problem, I said. You thought this marriage was a system, a machine you controlled. You forgot it was made of people. Of me. She didn't argue anymore. Just sat there. Crying. Alone. For maybe the first time since we met. I stood. Quietly. Calmly. And said the words that had been building in my chest since she first declared herself the ruler of something she never truly understood. You wanted to run the marriage your way, I said. Now you get to learn what that really means. I walked down the hall, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was abandoning something. I felt like I was reclaiming something. Leaving wasn't loud. That was the part that broke her the most, I think. There was no slammed door. No suitcase dragged down the hallway. No shouting match echoing through the walls. I didn't even leave a note. I just didn't come home. I had packed a single bag the night before while she was in the shower, simple things. A few shirts, my laptop, my passport. I already had a quiet rental lined up on the edge of town, a small studio near the lake. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. And no one in it looked at me like a prop in their personal success story. That morning, I made her coffee one last time. Black. No sugar. Just how she liked it. I set it by the sink where she always found it after she finished her skincare routine. Then I walked out. No goodbyes. No warnings. Just gone. I didn't turn off my phone. I wanted her to call. I wanted her to feel it, that reach for something she thought would always be there, and finding only air. The first message came at 10:13 a.m. Where are you? Followed by, did something happen? And then the one that told me everything. Are you seriously doing this right now? She wasn't worried. She was pissed. Because control wasn't just slipping, it had been ripped out of her hands without a sound. And now she was scrambling to hold on to something that was never truly hers. The next week unfolded like a quiet symphony of justice. She called my brother. He didn't answer. She emailed my HR contact, probably to check if I was still employed. I was. She posted something vague and dramatic on social media, some bullshit about loyalty and entitlement. It didn't get the sympathy she expected. People were tired of her show. And then came the texts. Not angry anymore. Just uncertain. Can we talk? I miss you. I didn't mean everything I said. I didn't realize how much you did until you stopped. That last one? That was the real confession. Because she hadn't just lost a husband. She'd lost the scaffolding that held her carefully curated life in place. The bills weren't getting paid. The appointments weren't being scheduled. The reminders, the repairs, The quiet emotional triage I did every damn day gone. She thought she could run everything her way. She forgot who built the road she was standing on. I saw her once, 2 weeks after I left. Pure coincidence. A Sunday afternoon. She was at the grocery store, standing in the frozen aisle with her phone in one hand and a bag of overpriced organic smoothie cubes in the other. She looked tired, frazzled, like someone trying to carry too much without dropping anything. Our eyes met, and for the first time in our marriage, she looked small. Not because I wanted her to, but because without me, she had nothing to stand on but herself, and she was finally feeling the weight. She opened her mouth to speak, but I just nodded politely and walked past her. That moment wasn't cruel. It was closure. Because I had tried. I had bent and compromised and swallowed and waited. I had begged silently for partnership while she played queen to a kingdom built from my silence. And when she said, "I run this marriage my way," I believed her. So I gave her the throne, and I left her to rule the ruin.
Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.